Hello, hello. It is 1:30 Central Time on January 15th, 2021. And I'm Jamie. I'm Jamie Trull. I am a profit strategist and financial literacy coach and CPA. A lot of things, a lot of titles. I am live right now on my YouTube channel, Jamie Trull. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching me there. I'm also live in my Facebook group. I want to make sure you guys come over to that. So it is jamietrull.com/group. That is my financial literacy for women business owners group, where we're having all of these topics, conversations about all these topics. So PPP, EIDL, unemployment, stimulus checks, all of the things. So come on over and join us over there and ask your questions. I'm fancy today, you guys. Can you tell? I'm fancy today. I got lipstick on. I got this. You can't really tell. It's a jacket. Oh, look at that. That's cool. I just got off my last webinar for my program. So you guys have probably seen it. That's what this is all about. If you're wondering, we are launching our financial fitness formula program right now. So it's only open for this week, and then we're going to close it for a while. We haven't opened it since last year. So if you have any interest, I think I forgot to link it, but it's jamietrull.com/FFF. Let's see. If you want to join the wall. And I have a bunch of people that just joined that I haven't been able to put up on the wall yet. I didn't have quite enough time in between the two lives. Okay. So I already see questions coming in. So hi, Joyce. Hi, Fernando. Hi, CJ. Hi, Stacy. Tell me you're here and say hi. And thank you, Joyce. You are sweet. I'll just put this up because you're sweet. Thank you. Lipstick. It's crazy, right? It's that kind of day. Okay. So what shall we talk about today? You want to talk about the stimulus, you guys? Let's talk about where we're at with the stimulus. So really not a ton of updates. Last week, so this week, PPP started. PPP round 2, or really round 3, it gets a little confusing, started this week. So those who didn't get a PPP loan could apply for a first draw. Those who did get a PPP loan could apply for a second draw if you meet that 25% reduction quarter over quarter. Okay, so that is something that started this week, but only a few banks started doing it. So these like community banks, largely, a lot of banks that serve low income areas started doing that. Now they will roll out probably next week. We'll see more widely banks that are doing it. Not every bank that did PPP loans the first time, you guys, is doing them this time. So you'll probably want to check with your bank and see. Some people have probably gotten messages from your banks as to whether or not they're going to be participating this round or not. It helps a little bit to use the same bank as you did the first round, just because you might have less documentation you have to give, but it's not a huge deal if you switch. I've heard people who have been able to get through the process really easily, even when they switch. So yes, so there is right now, I mean, again, we're still, oops, hi. I meant to put up somebody else's, but that's my mother-in-law. Hi. Let's see. So Fernando's saying that, yes, so there is a proposal. Yesterday, Biden released his next stimulus proposal, which is a big one. It's actually double what the last one was from a amount perspective. Now, again, this has to go through both houses of Congress and be signed. And it does, in some cases, depending on which route they go, and some of these things could be passed by a simple majority, but a lot of times they would prefer to get the 60 votes in Congress. So we'll have to see if some Republicans jump on with this as well. And then there are some Democrats who may kind of flip on this and not vote for it. But ultimately, this new $1.9 billion stimulus bill that was just kind of revealed has a lot of different provisions in it. So one of them would be $1,400 additional stimulus checks. So remember, we all wanted the $2,000. We didn't get it. We had $600. This would increase it to another $1,400. So you get the $2,000. There'd be one more round that would be available and come out. So that is something that is possible. We'll have to watch it. Hopefully it doesn't, this whole process can go faster than the last stimulus bill, which took an eternity to get passed. But it also includes things around unemployment and potentially adding another $100. So giving $400 instead of $300 extra a week, and extending that through even September is what it calls for. Again, this is all in a just shown bill. We don't know how far it's going to get, but there's a lot of provisions around help with rent and things like that. So we don't want to take it to the bank. We don't want to count on any of these things, but there is a lot of help in it. So if anything like that is passed, there will likely be more funding available to help people. So hopefully that's a good news for some of you guys if you're in the place where you're struggling. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'll start answering some questions here. When you say you need to put FTE, I think the application just calls for number of employees. And this has been a confusing part, I think, and they just made it confusing. Unless it says FTEs, they're not asking you for FTE. So FTE is when you're actually calculating out like a part-time employee, right? Instead of being one, counting as one. If they work 20 hours a week, they would be half an employee. If they work 10 hours a week, they would be 0.25 of an employee, right? So that's how you calculate FTE. When they ask for number of employees, my interpretation of that is just your straight number. So every part-time counts as one, every full-time counts as one. The form is asking you for different reasons. So it's important to note that even on the forgiveness form, it's asking people for number of employees, okay? But that doesn't mean that they're using that to assess whether you get forgiveness. That part on the top of those applications, on the top of the application to get PPP and the top of the application to get forgiven for it, those aren't being used to assess whether you get forgiveness, right? Those are being used more for government reporting purposes, so they know how many jobs were saved by PPP, that kind of thing. So a lot of people are worried, well, I put 1, should I put 0 or 1 if it's just me? And like, it doesn't really matter. It should not impact your forgiveness at all. If you have to do the full form forgiveness, you're going to have to give the full on calculation of your FTE, and all of that is going to be a part of it, especially if your loan is over 150,000, you're going to show all of that. And so therefore, it's handled separately. So the FTE is not that part that you're seeing on the top of the application, if that helps. I hate that they put that on there, especially on the forgiveness ones, because people are like, oh no, I'm showing a reduction. Is that going to impact anything? It really doesn't. Yes. Is there anything to help new businesses that don't have 2019 income? Yes. So if you're a new business, you can get PPP as long as you were in business by February 15th of 2020. And then I think you can get EIDL as long as you were in business by the end of February 2020. So those are both available. There are also grant programs and things like that with your state. So search for state grants or grants within your industry as well. Let's see. All right. So what documentation will be needed to prove decline in income in your, yes. So P&L is good. Sometimes if you don't have something like that, bank statements potentially could be used. In some cases, you can actually compare your full year versus your full year. So if you've had a 25% decline from 2020 compared to 2019, then you can just use your full year information. So that could be your tax return, and you probably don't have your tax return yet for 2020, but maybe your P&L for 2020, something like that to support it. Because if you are down 25% on the full year, that means that you're down 25% in one of those quarters, which means they've said, if you can prove it on the full year, then we're good, even if you don't have quarterly financials for people. Let's see. You cannot get a second EIDL grant. However, if you are in a low income area, and I talked about this on another Q&A, so I'm not going to go into it in detail, but there is some information on the Treasury website that talks about if you are in a low income area and you've experienced an economic, what's the word for it? I'm losing it today. I don't know. If you have seen a drop in gross receipts of basically any 8-week period compared to a previous 8-week period, like an 8-week period before or after March 2nd, 2020 with an 8-week period before March 2nd, 2020, then you can get your EIDL that you already got. You can get that increased to 10,000, but you have to be in a low income area and be able to show that 30% decline. They have not opened that portal yet though. So we're still waiting on more information about how that's going to work. It may be that it's in automatic. So they may be going based off the address you already put in there, and you may automatically end up seeing that. We don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be an application, but it could be something that's more automated than that, where you just see the money come. Hopefully you're told, but you might just see the money show up. We don't know yet. They have not clarified that. So yeah, second part of an EIDL grant for low income areas, it's all tax-free. It's all tax-free, and you can still deduct expenses paid with it. That's true for PPP. That's true for EIDL as well for the grant. So no tax consequences on either of those. That was something that was clarified in the new bill. Do you have to apply for EIDL forgiveness if you only receive the grant? No, there's no forgiveness process. So the EIDL loan, not forgivable, won't be forgivable. So I think somebody else asked that question. Nope. EIDL loan is a loan. It's not forgivable. It won't be forgivable. EIDL grant, okay, is already forgiven. It's automatic. It's a grant. So grants, you don't have to apply. You don't have to prove how you used it, although I probably would keep records of how you used it just in case the SBA does an audit or something like that. Don't let that word freak you out, but just to have it, I would probably have that support to show what you used it for. But no, you don't have to go through a forgiveness process on the EIDL grant. PPP draw isn't available for businesses established in July 2020. Nope. February 15th is the date to be applicable for first or second draw. No idea. I keep checking back. I'm checking back daily. So we don't know yet. You can't get a second EIDL either. But if you need an increase in your EIDL loan, you can apply for an increase in your loan that you got. Let's see. What if I didn't make any money during the third and fourth quarters, $0 in income? Well, that should be perfect then for you to be able to qualify for PPP, because you just need to show a 25% reduction quarter over quarter. So if you take Q3 of 2020 and you didn't make any money and you compare it to Q3 of 2020, if you made any money, you're showing already a 25% reduction. So you should qualify for PPP if that's the case. No, neither the PPP. So for the calculation of the 25% decrease, you do not include PPP as income. So that doesn't count as gross receipts. So you leave that out, which is great because that could have disqualified some people, right? But you leave that out. And then same thing with any kind of unemployment that you're receiving, that is personal income, not business income. So that's important. You do not want to be putting your unemployment into like your QuickBooks file for your business. That's not going to be part of your business income. That is personal income. So if you actually put in your business, you might end up accidentally getting taxed twice. You don't want to do that. It's not business income, and therefore it doesn't count as income towards your business. Okay, hang on. Let's see. If sole prop, can you use 1099 if you don't have taxes done yet? Yes, you should be able to use your 1099s to be able to support that. Again, though, your 1099s are going to show annual. So if you're down at least 25%, absolutely, you should be able to use your 1099s to support that decline. If you're not down, though, the 25% annually, you might still be down 25% on a quarter by quarter basis. So you still probably want to go back and analyze on a quarter by quarter basis and see if you didn't meet annually, then go back and try to create something, and we do have a P&L template if that's something that you guys would like to see. You can do this long link, or you can just use jamietrull.com/profit loss if you need to be able to create a P&L template to be able to use for these purposes. And you can do it and it'll show you quarterly as well. You'll be able to see all your months if you use my template. Okay, let's see. I have not seen a new forgiveness form out yet. I did just check. I am still expecting them to have one because they changed the rules that said it should be a one-pager. And right now that's not the case. So for all loans under 150,000, I do expect new forgiveness forms. Maybe next week. I'm guessing next week will be the week. If we don't hear anything by next week, because I've been telling people to kind of hold out if your loan's under 150K, wait for the simplification. If we don't hear anything by next week, I'm going to tell you guys to go forward because I don't know what they're doing over there. But I have not seen a new forgiveness form come out yet. We haven't seen new application forms. So I think they were focusing on that first to get the applications out so that people could apply for PPP round 2 and if they needed PPP again. But there is not a new forgiveness form that I've seen. I'm hoping it's forthcoming though. If your loan's over 150,000 though, you likely won't have a new form. So you can just go ahead. Let's see. So no, it is not considered income. So again, this just goes by gross receipts. So if you use the employee retention credit, no. And I have more to come. I'm going to be attending, I believe next week, a more specific webinar just on the employee retention credit that's for accountants, because it is really complicated. And so this one, I continue telling you guys, Rolodex the employee retention credit. Just like write it down on a Post-it note for you to remember that when we have more specifics and when I can figure out how to convey it in a way, it's hard. That's a hard subject to teach to a wide variety of people on a Facebook Live. But I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of simplify down the employee retention credit. The employee retention credit, just as a overview, previously last year, if you got PPP, you couldn't get the employee retention credit. The employee retention credit is something that if you have seen a reduction in your gross receipts of a particular amount, and that amount changes depending on whether you're looking at 2020 or 2021, and you kept people employed during those quarters that you saw a reduction, you can get a tax credit, okay, for the amounts you paid. And that tax credit, at least for 2020, is up to $5,000 per employee. For 2021, it's even more. So I want you guys to have this on your radar screen. If you have an accountant, a CPA, go talk to them, ask them about the employee retention credit. If you do not, or go ask your payroll provider as well. They may be able to help you with this too. If not, though, stay tuned. I'm going to try to figure out a way to simplify this as much as I can for you guys. My first PPP has not been fully forgiven yet. My banker keeps saying to wait. Am I in trouble? No, you're not in trouble. You don't have to apply for PPP forgiveness until, so you essentially, your payments are deferred. You're not going to have to make any payments on PPP until 10 months after your covered period ends. So after your 24 weeks, then your 10-month countdown starts. And so that clock will go. So you have 10 months. So I don't think nobody should have met their 10 months because they didn't start giving PPPs till April. So, and here's the thing, even if you don't apply within that 10 months, I think this is important because this is, we always say 10 months. That means you just have to start paying on it. So you're going to have to start making payments at 10 months. If you don't apply for it by 10 months, you can still apply at 12 months. You've already started making payments on it, right? So you can only defer payments up to that 10 months. So that's important. If I've seen a decent number of banks requiring payment on PPP right now, you need to reach out and tell them that they're not allowed to do that. The PPP Flexibility Act, which was passed on June 5th of last year, said you are not required to make any payments on PPP until the sooner of you are forgiven. And if you've already gone through that process and had a portion unforgiven, then yes, you will have to start making payments. But if you haven't even applied for forgiveness, they cannot start making you make payments. Okay, they cannot. That is illegal as of the PPP Flexibility Act. So I just want to mention that because I've heard reports of that, and it baffles my mind a little bit on some of these banks. Yes, so this is possible. Some states. So here's how it works with states. So states are, so you pay taxes federally, you pay your income taxes federally, and you pay your state income taxes. Oftentimes states follow the federal treatment. It just makes it easier for tax reasons. So oftentimes states follow what they do federally. And sometimes that may take, like most of the time, grants and forgivable loans are going to be taxable. This one is not because Congress specifically made it not, right? But then your state also can decide whether they are going to make it taxable or not. A lot of them will maybe, even if they haven't already, some of them may now that they passed that, now that we know that it's not going to be taxable from a federal perspective, some states may follow suit and pass their own thing saying, nope, it's not taxable for us either. It usually will require them, though, to pass something because typically most of those types of things are going to be taxable based on state law. So some states, though, will have a difference where it's not taxed federally. Remember, though, your federal taxes are a heck of a lot more than your state taxes. So your state taxes it really ranges. I mean, you could have a state tax of 5%, right? It's not going to be as impactful as a 25% tax rate, let's say federally or something like that. Okay. Let's see. Not true. Those things do not impact each other. So you could get the low income EIDL grant and you can get the second round of PPP. So those things should not impact each other. Don't use them for the exact same thing, but yeah, you can get both. That is not double dipping to get both of those things. I'm filling out the second draw PPP application. Number of employees, is that the same FTE as before, or how do we fill that out? So I talked about that in the beginning. So the number of employees is just your number of employees. It's really not the same as the FTE calculation. Let's see. No, I believe not. Look back at the wording. I'm pretty sure that it's just the salary that's capped at 100,000 and not the retirement benefits. Okay. Does the second PPP loan application for under 150,000 require P&L, bank statements, or any documentation when applying? Yeah. If your loan is for under 150,000, you don't have to show the 25% reduction. You probably will still have to give support for the calculation of your payroll costs, though. So your payroll reports and that kind of thing. Okay. Or your Schedule C if that's what you're using. So you will have to provide support for the calculation of your payroll costs unless you're using the exact same support that you already turned in for the first round, right? If you're using that same thing. Remember, now you can use 2020 if you want to. So look and see which payroll costs are going to be higher because you want to get the higher loan. You can use 2019 or 2020. If you use 2019, it should be the exact same amount you got before. But you're not required to show the 25% reduction when you apply for the loan if you're getting under 150,000. However, you do have to show that support when you go to get it forgiven. So make sure you can and you will be able to support it, right? So I think that that's something important. Just because you don't have to show it at the outset doesn't mean you're home free. You're going to have to show it eventually. If we received the first PPP and it was already forgiven, can I apply for the second PPP draw based on the same losses numbers? Yes. Or do I need to prove additional losses that were not previously covered by the first draw? Okay, so when you got your first PPP loan forgiven, you didn't have to show support though that you had declined quarter over quarter. So now if you were in business all of 2019 and all of 2020, okay, you would, let's say Q2 was your worst quarter. You would say, okay, Q2 I made 10,000, or let's say Q2 I made $7,500. Last Q2 I made $10,000, right? And then that shows the 25% decline. So you will have to prove those. If you're getting over 150,000, you have to prove them when you apply. If it's under 150,000, you have to prove that when you apply for forgiveness. So yes. Let's see. And I do want you guys to go to my PPP calculator. So that'll help with that, figuring out if you apply for that, if you have that 25% reduction, especially if you're a business that just started in 2020 or in later 2019, figuring out what quarters you can compare. I've put all that together on my calculator. So jamietrull.com/PPP calculator. That's what you're going to want to use. Let's see. So yes and no. Yes and no. So if you're under 50,000, no, you don't have to worry about keeping employees at all if you're under 150,000 in your PPP loan. If you're over that, yes, but there is a caveat that says if you couldn't rehire employees because of COVID restrictions and because of health requirements and et cetera, then you can basically get exempt from that FTE calculation. So it is, yes, they still have the rules around FTE in there, but again, there are ways to kind of say, well, COVID has impacted my business such that I can't rehire back to where I was. So that is what you may be able to use. Let's see. I'm looking for ones I haven't answered. So some of these, if I don't answer, maybe because I already answered them. Can contractors be considered an employee for the application? Only purpose contractors have to add themselves as one. Yeah. So if you are a contractor, you can put one. Technically, you're not an employee of your business if you're a contractor, unless you are a corporation, right? Like the owner is only technically an employee, but I think what they're getting at here is just how many people are you paying with this money, right? So if you are the contractor that is applying, then yeah, you can pay yourself with the money. If you are getting the money, you can't, here's where it gets confusing. If you're getting the money, you cannot include your contractors in the calculation of the amount you get. Only W-2 employees and or yourself, right? So if you're a sole proprietor LLC, that means or partnership or something like that, that means you can include yourself. And usually you're going to use a Schedule C or your K1 to determine what that is. If you are an S Corp, you can only use your W-2 wages to figure out what you can pay yourself. But either way, you're going to add in your employee W-2 wages paid, not wages paid to 1099 contractors for figuring out the 2.5 times payroll. However, you guys, and that's not considered payroll, that doesn't count in the 60%. But the other 40% of money you get, now that they changed the rules and made it such that that extra 40% can go for more. It used to be just rent and utilities and things like that you could pay for it. Now you can pay for rent, utilities, and just like general operating expenses. My interpretation would be you could probably pay independent contractors with the 40%, right? So you have to pay at least 60% out in payroll, right? If you're not, ignore this for my sole proprietors. This doesn't really count for those of you who don't have employees and you're a Schedule C. But everybody else, you can, you pay out 60%, make sure you pay out your 60% in payroll. That extra 40% can go towards more things now. So potentially paying contractors being one of them. Okay. Yes, you can. Yes, I believe you can. I would check with your bank. There's nothing that says that you can't, right? So what she's talking about is you can amend your first PPP loan if you didn't get as much as you should have for various reasons. Some people who applied really early on, they didn't have it dialed in, like they weren't, maybe you were a sole proprietor or a partnership and you didn't get money to pay yourself, only your employees, right? You might be able to go back and get extra money, or they miscalculated your loan and you're a seasonal business owner and they miscalculated your loan. You can go back and get more on PPP1, and then you still should be able to be eligible for PPP second draw as well. So that's how I read it. Now, how banks actually put that into practice, I don't know. But I'm curious if anybody has gone back and gotten more from their bank at this point that had their loan that was too. I'm going to put a post in the group about this too, because I'd love to know if anybody has gone back and been able to increase the amount of their loan. Lindsay's dropping some links for me. Yeah, here's the calculator. Here's the long link for the calculator. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to lean up. On the form PPP loan forgiveness 3508S, it asks for the PPP loan amount, EIDL advance amount, and then the forgiveness amount. The forgiveness amount to be listed would be for the PPP loan amount only. Yes. So ignore the advance. Don't like subtract the advance or anything. Just put, if you use your whole loan correctly, you would put the whole amount there. The advance thing isn't actually even really being used anymore. So you have to put that in, but they're not subtracting your advance from your PPP forgiveness. If they do, then they're doing it wrong. Let's see. Joyce says, for the 8-week, 24-week rules, is the payroll maximum gross pay amount for business owners the same like in PPP 1? Is the payroll maximum amount for business owners? Yes. So the amount you can pay yourself, yes, it is the same limit. You can pay yourself. Now it depends on, again, if you're a sole proprietor, you can pay yourself essentially your 2.5 times payroll if it's just you based on your Schedule C. If you are a corporation, you can pay yourself 2.5 months worth of your salary based on 2019. If that makes sense. All right. Let's see. Okay, so you're talking about the PPP loan. On the PPP loan, so this is important. You have to make certifications on the PPP loan. So one of those certifications says, current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. Now, they did come out and say if your loan is under $2 million, that's going to be assumed that you certifying this is going to be assumed to be in good faith. So they're not necessarily going to be auditing people that are under that. But you guys, I think integrity and ethics matter here, right? So like if your business is doing gangbusters, please don't apply for PPP. Leave it for people who need it. There are a lot of businesses that are really, really struggling. And so regardless of whether you might get caught or not, right? The truth is you need to really think about that statement. Is this something I need? Is my business down? right? If your business is down, if you know you would be doing better if it weren't for PPP, or if it weren't for COVID, right? If it has caused a negative impact to your business and you've not been able to pivot in a way that has made up for that, then, or you foresee in the next few months, potentially, I know it's hard to look through the crystal ball in the future, but we can probably tell by looking back and how 2020 was, we can probably get a feel for how 2021 could be, right? If you're like, I'm probably going to be fine, my business is fine, I would leave that money for people who need it. Truthfully, I would. I just think it is important for business owners to support one another and for the money to be there for those businesses. There are businesses that are decimated right now. There are travel industry that's just getting killed. There's the event industry that's getting murdered. There's all these businesses that are really struggling. So I will say, just because you can get it, just because you may be able to get it, doesn't mean you should. So I'm not trying to preach to anybody. Y'all make your own decisions, but definitely just make sure to kind of sense check with yourself and how it feels. If you're having trouble certifying that, then ask yourself why. Okay. Let's see. My bank has no idea what I'm talking about. When I inquire about an increase on our first loan, we took $20K less than we qualified for. For PPP, you're saying, I'm assuming, so you took $20K less than what you qualified for. Well, this may be because I have not seen, it's in the bill that you are able to, actually, they did come out with instructions. I will go on Treasury. Kelsey, after this, I'm going to go on treasury.gov and I'm going to drop you the information that you can send over to your bank. I'll put it in the thread about how to increase. And it even walks through, like, here's what you do, banks in E-Tran, to get more money. So I really hate how banks just abdicate. They're like, I don't know what that is. Like, they should be reading the guidance as well. Some banks are killing it. Some banks are doing great. So shout out your bank if your bank is killing it for people so that they know for the next round. Okay, I just lost my place. So let's see. Okay, so this is good. Yeah, this is true. Yeah, so the SBA is just saying an employee that you're accounting on that sheet is just all individuals employed on a full-time, part-time, or other basis, so long as they're working at least 40 hours a month. So there you go. That's what goes on the forgiveness. That's not your FTE. That's your number of employees. So it's a different definition, but it's not, honestly, to be honest, it's not overly that important to get exactly right. Let's see. If you got extra on the first round, can you apply to the second round? You are required to have spent the money in the way that you're supposed to, right? For the first round. So I haven't seen anything. They've never addressed in any of the guidance what happens if you get more than you were supposed to, other than, you may not be able to get forgiven for all of it, right? Depending on your situation. So I don't know. But again, I would talk to your bank about that. Let's see. How do I calculate what amount for PPP second round when I open my business on January 31st, 2020? So you're going to look at your Q1. They're going to use Q1 of 2020 to calculate. Well, actually, you can use, now that you can use the year of 2020, right? You can actually use your full year 2020 payroll costs. So for you, if you're a new business, I recommend doing that. You can actually use that full year as the payroll cost basis that they will give you then money for. How do I calculate what amount? Yeah, so that's how you're going to calculate it out if you are a new business. Also, go get my but if you're getting a second round, you do have to be able to show that decrease. So that would mean your Q1 versus any other quarter has to show a 25% decrease. So if you started your business in Q1, you're going to have to compare it. And it's going to be a little bit tough because you started January 31st. So it's going to be a little bit of a tough thing, I think, for a lot of businesses to show, unless you had a gangbusters first couple of months and then tanked, right? And then you may be able to get the second round. Let's see. 40% new rules can now include fuel for businesses, trucking company. Yes. So you can't, so that's general operating expenses. So because you can use it more for wider operating expenses, you could include that. Now here's the thing though, you guys, they're giving you 2.5 months worth of payroll, i.e. like 10 weeks worth of payroll, and they're giving you 24 weeks worth use it. So for me, the easiest thing to do is just to use it on payroll, right? Like that's probably going to be the easiest thing to do. You're probably going to be able to easily use 10 weeks worth of payroll in 24 weeks, right? That's almost 6 months. So it's oftentimes the easiest way to do it versus using other things and then having to like provide support for all those other things that you're using it for. Yes, so my bank deducted my EIDL grant amount for my PPP when they deposited my check. Is there any recourse since the rules have changed? Yes, they should be automatically. They may not have done it yet, but they should automatically essentially forgive you for that. So there is, if you go to the SBA website, there's some information on this as well, where you will be able to see the directions that it tells banks, basically, you're going to have to give this money back. What's going to happen? What actually happens is the SBA gives the money to the bank, right? Because the SBA has to make the bank whole, and then the bank will give you your money back. If they keep requiring payment and things from you, and it's been a couple of weeks, then I would definitely follow back up and say like, hey, what about this? Like, what about this notice that says I don't have to do this anymore? Let's see. And I don't think most banks are doing this because out of, I think they're just not staying informed on all of this, which is unfortunate. I don't think they're necessarily just trying to like, grift people. I don't think. Maybe I'm too optimistic. Let's see. So if you're a sole proprietor, and again, I'm going to do something specific on this because this is a huge topic and I'm still learning a lot on the employee retention credit because it is complicated. And I'm trying to think of a good way to convey all of this information to you guys. So just for right now, hang on to it. But if you are a sole proprietor in LLC, i.e. you're not actually an employee of your business, then no, the employee retention credit doesn't apply to you. So for those of you guys who are, it's just you and you don't have a corp, an S corp or a C corp, don't worry about the employee retention credit. Let's see. I'm looking. The quarter you're comparing to is not payroll, but income. Right. So you calculate the loan. This is what gets confusing with PPP forgiveness. You calculate the loan one way. Then you calculate, which is just payroll, based on payroll. Then you calculate the 25% on gross receipts, right? Revenue coming in. And then you calculate forgiveness on this like 60%, 40% rule, right? So there's so many different, that's where I think we get confused sometimes, is just on those different, like what applies to what. So some of these I already answered. We're still waiting. If we don't hear anything by next week, I would just apply using what's available out there. For restaurants, they give you tips as part of the 3.5 payroll. So it can be hard to, yeah. So for you, but restaurants should have rent and utilities and things like that. So it should make it possible for you to be able to get forgiven as well. Oops. Let's see. So this may be the one reason. So Julia says, you say to use 10 weeks of payroll in 24 weeks. If I use the PPP for 60% payroll, put 40% towards expenses, can I still get the ERC after that 60%? Yeah. So for ERC, so they don't impact each other in the sense that taking ERC doesn't mean you can't get forgiven for PPP, and PPP doesn't mean you can't get the ERC now. However, you can't claim the wages towards your credit if you use them for PPP forgiveness. So this would be the one case where, okay, maybe you would want to keep it at the 60% if you want if you want those other ones to count towards ERC. So in that case, yes, work with an accountant though. If you're trying to don't do this on your own, because I really do think that there's a lot of complexity with these calculations and making sure that PPP wages versus ERC wages, it is enough to make your head spin. So if you're trying to maximize this and do it the best way possible, work with an accountant for sure. And one who's knowledgeable on this stuff. So make sure to ask questions about that. We had a grocery store and a restaurant both. So it is, if it's the same EIN, it all goes by your NAICS code. So if your NAICS code's 72, you can get the 3.5 times payroll. Everybody else gets 2.5 times. So you should be able to see that on your tax documents, what your NAICS code is. Yes, you can. You can pay yourself the entire amount as a 1099 contractor. That's what I recommend that you do. And I would actually make sure you have a business bank account. Okay, guys, I'm going to put it in here, jamietrull.com/Novo. Okay, this is my new bank that I'm recommending for those of you guys, especially if you were using Aslo. Aslo is closing. I've done a lot of research. I've actually spent time talking to these banks. Novo is the one that I recommend. They have actually a reserve account, which is similar to the envelopes that Aslo had. They're totally free. So for anybody who doesn't have a business bank account, and this was the case for a lot of independent contractors that couldn't show paying themselves, right? Open a Novo account and then put your money in there. Put your PPP money into that, and then pay yourself out of it. Then you'll be able to support that you paid yourself. I would just have it just in case. You shouldn't have to do much, but I would check that out. I really like Novo, totally free online banking, fabulous customer service. And they have a deal right now that Aslo customers who switch over, I'm trying to remember, for the first 90 days, you'll get your debit card in the mail for the first 90 days. For every $1,000 you spend, you get $25 on it. So if you already have business expenses, right, that's 2.5% back, cash back on a debit card. That's awesome for the first 90 days. So go sign up, use that link, go sign up for Novo, because it's pretty awesome. I signed up for an account. I only recommend things that I use. So I just signed up for an account as well, and they've been great so far. Okay, so my independent contractors, things like that. I mean, this is good for any kind of business, but let's see. More than likely, yes. This is where it gets really complicated. So go look and check your state for details, because PPP and PUA, it is double dipping if you are taking both to pay yourself and there's no claiming of it. There's some intricacies depending on what type of entity you are as well. But in general, I would look to see what a lot of states basically have you claim it over essentially 10 weeks, right? Because that's how much pay it is for you from when you get the money. And so that might reduce your unemployment that you're getting, right? But you can still claim, and you just claim, hey, I made this income as well. And it'll reduce your unemployment benefits, but then you won't really have to deal with double dipping because you claimed it. And so that's what we want to do. If I apply for PPP forgiveness early and I'm not forgiven 100%, do I have to start repaying immediately? Yes. So if you're worried that you're not going to be fully forgiven and you don't have the money right now to be repaying it, then you might want to max out that 10 months. Because payments do become due. It's as long as you're past 6 months, right? So if the original terms of the loan were 6 months. So if you've been past 6 months, but you're between that 6 and 10 months, if you apply for forgiveness and you're not forgiven for all of it, payments will start being immediately due. Now, even though payments are deferred this whole time, remember, interest is calculating on all of this money though. Let's see. In my opinion, I know restaurants got hit hard, so did personal services. Does it seem fair? I don't opine on fairness. There are some other industries that are getting other things too. So there may be specific grants for your industry. So I know, for example, I posted in the group today about if you're a venue, they have specific grants for venues that were shuttered. So if you have a music venue or something like that are involved in that, you may be able to get one of those venue grants. These are grants. So if you are a shuttered venue or potentially could qualify as one, then you don't want to do the PPP second draw, especially if you've been hard hit and your revenue's been way down. You want to get one of the shuttered venue grants instead. Okay. The reason you want to do that is because you can get 45% of your revenue in a grant, like of your 2019 revenue in a grant. So it is way better than PPP if you qualify. So I'm trying to remember who all qualifies. I did make a post in the group about it today because they have some information now on the SBA website. It's not open for application yet, and they're prioritizing people who have lost lots. So they're first going to open applications for people who have lost 90% of their revenue or more. Then they're going to continue to open it depending on how much funding that they have. But if you're way down and you are in that, you're a live music, your production company, whatever it is, right? You may be eligible for these shuttered venue grants, in which case that's better than PPP. And if you get a PPP second draw, you can't get a shuttered venue grant. So make sure you pay attention to that if you fall into that. Let's see. I would always have a business account. So it is always important to have a business bank account, even if you're a gig worker, if you're a 1099 contractor. You may be able to show that by transferring accounts. It's better than nothing, but it's still best to have a business account. So like I said, jamietrull.com/Novo is where you want to go. Let's see. I'll answer a couple of more. I'm already at 45 minutes. Okay. All right. So if we know we were overfunded and our bank hasn't opened forgiveness yet, can we make payments? Can we make payments for the overfunded part? So no, I don't think you can. But remember, it's 1% interest. It's not a ton, right? Like, I mean, it's not going to be overly impactful. So that's the great thing about these PPP loans is they are like crazy low interest. So, it's not like you're going to be, unless you got a really big loan, like, racking up thousands of dollars in interest charges by not paying it off. If your bank, again, I really think by next week, they should be having more guidance out on forgiveness for those banks that still haven't released it. If you receive the EIDL, would you pay double payments monthly to pay off your loan? What do you recommend? Go use my EIDL tracker. That's what I recommend. jamietrull.com/EIDL tracker. I have a place where you can actually put in what you repay early and see the interest pieces and just look at that from how much you're spending in interest by just holding on to that money. I think it depends on your specific situation. If you want to use that money as an insurance policy in case things decline further, right? Then keep it. If you don't think you're going to need it or use it, then pay it back, right? Why have debt that's accruing interest? That one actually is accruing some decent interest. So that's a 30-year, slightly higher interest, right? Like it's accruing some decent interest. So I would for sure look at that, because even though payments don't start being due for a year, you will get interest that is accruing over time. So if you don't need the money, if you know you're not going to need the money, pay it back. Let's see. I don't know the answer here, but I would go, it's wherever if your business is registered at all. I don't know if it is, if you have a business license, wherever you're registering it, whatever you used to apply for your EIDL grant is probably what they're going to use for that. So I don't know specifically the answer, but you may want to call the SBA as well if that's a situation. Let's see. There's not a form that I have seen at this point. I've just seen the instructions for how a bank is supposed to input that information into eTran. So different banks may have a different way of collecting that information. I still haven't seen how this is going to work out. Right now, it's theory that you can get an increase, but I still have not heard of people who have successfully done it through their bank. So I want to collect those stories and maybe they can give some advice onto what they had to give for it, but there's no specific form that I have seen. Yes. So it just means you can't use it for the same payroll, right? So if you're writing down on your EIDL tracker and your PPP tracker and saying you spent $5,000 on this specific week for this specific payroll, well, you can't really do that, right? You can't use money from two different places to pay the same expense. But yes, I would probably have like a break between the two just to make it like really clear, don't like half of this payroll during this pay period is from this and half of, like, I would have a break. That's at least what the SBA rep told me when I asked this specific question to him 6 months ago. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to take one last question. EIDL grant ran out after we applied while we were basically signing our docs that same day. We took the loan. Any hope on getting the grant? I don't think so. Honestly, I have not seen, I don't think so. I don't think that they're planning to go back to people to give them grants, even if they ran out. That doesn't seem to be a priority. It seems like they're prioritizing those low income areas. So I think that that you are probably out of luck on the grant, unfortunately, unless you're in that low income area. If you've already gotten an EIDL loan. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go. It's been 50 minutes and I was live for an hour and a half before this. I'm tired. I think is it cocktail hour yet? I feel like it needs to be cocktail hour. Anyway, if anybody's interested, I really want to tell you guys, my program closes next week. So if you're interested in taking control of your business finances this year for 2021, I want you to go check out the information about it, jamietrull.com/FFF. It's Financial Fitness Formula. It's not going to be opening anytime soon. Again, obviously, if you're in a spot where you're really in a struggle spot right now because of COVID, this is not the time for you. So I'm not selling to you. I'm selling to people who can afford this and have decided that 2021 is going to be the year. I do offer a 6-pay as well to help people with the additional cost of it. But just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of it. If you want to help me, #fill the wall. Okay, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.